I think that our global activities were really motivated by a couple of things, sort of dual artistic and social goals. And I think in terms of the artistic goals, the idea was really to preserve fine art lithography, which was related to our goal, June Wayne's goals at the inception of Tamarind, and also to expand accessibility to the process of fine art lithography. And in my travels, by the time I was appointed director in 1985, our initial goals of reviving the art of American lithography was pretty much accomplished. There were probably 200 workshops, collaborative workshops in the United States where artists could go and work with a fine art printer. And so what I had noticed in my travels was that that same artistic tradition of collaboration in printmaking didn't really exist in very many places. It did in France, it did in Germany, but in Eastern Europe, for example, where there was a long tradition of the artist/printmaker, there really wasn't a tradition of the artist and the printer working together. So I felt like that's where the need really existed, and when that was the need in terms of preserving fine art lithography that still existed when I was appointed director. So I knew that I wouldn't get any money from the university, which propelled me to pursue grants. And one of the first things I decided to learn when I became director was how to write grants and how to get external funding for projects that would promote those goals. So that artistic goal in terms of preserving fine art lithography and expanding accessibility for artists to the medium, and then also the social goals, really, to bring diverse communities together. The idea of community has always been really important to me personally. And I've always been interested since a very early age from my own personal experiences in cultural differences. And so I saw that there would be opportunities to reinforce the artistic goals with these kind of social programs that would bring diverse communities together and allow them to share information and to share their cultural values and experiences. Initially, June's idea was that to expand accessibility to the medium, it would be necessary to train fine art printers. I also felt that it was important to show the work that we had been doing around the world. And we were lucky enough to get the Arts America program of the USIA to buy all the prints from us, frame a huge exhibition of prints, and then circulate 2 different exhibitions, one all over Europe and the other one all over South America. So what happened then was that people would go to see these exhibitions and they would say, wow, this is really complicated work. This is way beyond just, a basic 3-color crayon print in lithography or any other of the print mediums for that matter. And so that led a lot of people to pursue, I didn't know this was possible. Where can we learn how to do this? That granting agencies, for one thing, granting agencies have various themes that are popular at the moment. And so it's important to recognize what those themes are, whether they're education or whether they're artistic exploration. I think for us, we were writing those grants at a time when diversity was becoming something that was really important in American cultural life. And so that kind of just fit right in with the things I was interested in doing. And so working with those organizations and heightening my awareness of where those organizations were and what kinds of projects they were funding gave me the opportunity to bring these diverse cultures together and sit down with them and explain what we wanted to do and to listen to what also was important to them, because key to getting those grants was meshing the organization's goals with our goals. I think that part of what has been so rewarding is in bringing all these cultures together is not only in knowing and learning and about the way we choose to live differently or the way different ways in which we think, but also to see our common humanity and to walk into a room in India where everyone is dressed differently and has a whole different set of beliefs, to know that our common humanity is still what binds us together. We all need two things: love and food.
Well, at the time I was being after I finished graduate school, uh, I didn't get a teaching job. Um, you went to those conferences, and I got close to getting a job, but not. I didn't get anything. And so I was like, okay, but what else can I do? How do I stay in the arts if I'm not teaching? What else? You can work in museums, you can work in galleries. I mean, there's a bunch of things. So um, at the time, I was for a year after graduate school, I was first a maintenance man in a hospital, and it was actually a great job. I worked with this guy who was a retired carpenter. He could do anything. He was great about I learned a lot about how to fix things, how to make things. But I applied to I knew about Tamarind, and I was living in Salt Lake at the time, and I applied, and I didn't get in. So it was like, and then Vera wanted to go back to school, and she applied. She got into a paralegal program at NAU, Northern Arizona in Flagstaff. So I found the job as a carpenter in Flagstaff, and I was out in the boonies building these really kind of fancy, expensive houses out in the middle of nowhere. And it gets cold in Flagstaff in the wintertime, and I knew I didn't want to grow old being a carpenter the rest of my life, but I enjoyed the work. I like being outside and stuff, and I learned a lot from these older carpenters. So then Vera said one day, she said, well, why don't we, you didn't get in the first time. You need to make an appointment and go there. You need to show your face and, maybe submit some more prints to them. And so I signed up for a class at NAU. I asked the printmaking instructor if I could um, just make some prints. And I told him I wanted to beef up my portfolio a little bit, and I was going to apply to Tamarind again. And he said, sure. So I paid a class fee, whatever, and so I made some prints. I worked on the weekends and stuff, and then it was just a 4-hour drive from Flagstaff to Albuquerque. And I remember we camped at a KOA campground, and um, so I had an appointment at Tamarind, and I show up, and they were proofing one of the Kenny Price prints with all those blends and stuff in them, which to this day I was like totally blown away about. I was like, wow, look at what they're doing. And I always loved that Kenny Price print. So, I saw the facility, I had an interview, we talked, and I, applied again. And the second time, I don't know whether it was the second or I don't remember. You said it was third time? Wow. um, so then I got it. And that was it. I got hooked into the program. Usually when an artist shows up, I think that it was the first time Jose was there, and so we hadn't met before, and but he was really nice, real friendly. He brought his wife and a little child, a young child, and um, at the time I had a senior printer by the name of Valle. And she was from northern Spain. She was from Asturias, and in the Basque region of Spain. And I think Jose appreciated that a lot. It was just circumstance, that she was there, but they could speak Spanish to each other and stuff, and maybe he could get his ideas across a little bit better. I mean, his English was fine, but you always want to speak in your native tongue. So I just remember Jose just being drawing pretty quickly, and I was just glad that I had Valle there. It worked out really well, and we were just working back and forth, on our projects. Um, um, I think I was working on some. I think I started with him, and he just did some one-run prints. They weren't that. They were fairly simple. And I remember one print, we proofed it on several different kinds of paper. I remember we printed it on black, we printed it on tan, and like an off-white or a white. And he narrowed it down to a black and a tan sheet of paper. And on the tan paper, we proofed it, I remember, in a blue color. And on the black paper, we proofed it on a white. And we decided he couldn't decide which one he liked best. He said, well, can we do a small edition of each one? Once he got those kind of under his belt, he wanted to work a little more color and a little bigger, Valle was working with him on it. I do remember her like mixing ink for the road, the asphalt. He wanted it to look like asphalt or something. And I think there was something about how white would print over that black, because that figure and stuff. Because this was like a buff kind of paper, but then he wanted some white, like I think in the headlights of the car and the line down the middle, and then like just some texture in the road there. And then there was a white over this figure, the skeleton kind of figure. It was a nice print. I always liked that print that he did with Valle. Well, he was interested in how to make this texture of the countryside or whatever out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, he started simple and then kind of worked a little bit into color. I think that's it.
During your first Tamarind residency, you produced both edition lithographs and unique lettered proofs. It was only towards the end of your residency that you began experimenting with monotype. How did that initial encounter with monotype expand your understanding of what printmaking could be?
Well, I think the whole monotype thing is because of Valpuri's genius. I think part of like her um, uniqueness as a master printer is that I feel like she can really tune into the artist and see like what pace they're working at, like their internal pace, and what excites them. And I think she could intuit that um, we came up with two really good lithographs. But I think she could intuit that I didn't quite find something that matched my internal speed or vibe completely. And we finished a little early. So she was like, hey, we have, I don't know, I forget, like maybe 2 days we had, or even a day. I
Sounds
don't
about
know.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. She was like, well, we have some extra time. Do you want to just try some monotypes? And we did. And I think she could just kind of tell how I lit up. And I'm a pretty expressive person. I think it was very palpable how much I loved it for two reasons. One, it was a lot more like painting in terms of its immediacy. But two, it had something that was so uniquely print making, which was there's like an elegance to a monotype, like even though it's the directness of the mark, you still have to press it with the press, and that creates this elegance, I guess is the only word I have, which is something that I don't feel painting is. And I realize I don't need painting to be as elegant as I appreciate the print process. I found that prints they're these gorgeous in their own right, and that they have a very different spirit than a oil painting. So I think that's what I learned. I realized, wow, even though we're here, we did lithographs, we did monotypes, they're both very different, yet what they have in common is this kind of elegance that I really sort of, I was like, this could be my way to explore that.
As master printer, how did the decision to pursue monotypes shape your technical and conceptual approach? Did the absence of editioning alter how you thought about the collaboration?
There was more in her. She could give more, I felt. There was more energy, there was more. And it often happens when you start working together, you start working the technique in the studio. It's not just, it's not all about what we're doing. It's our relationship, the energy, the space becomes familiar, the sort of language becomes familiar, and we start creating our own unique technique together. Like, what could we do? What excites her? What kind of words is she using? What kind of tools is she gravitating towards? What kind of expressive mark does she make? And what could maybe be the best in here within our toolbox, this workshop? What could work for her? It's sort of two very different brains at the same time working in a printer's brain. It's like this very sort of one part of my brain, I don't know which part it is, or it's multiple little parts that come together to form this person who is creating possibilities for the artist to create, opening doors, nudging, directing, encouraging, pulling back, pushing, thinking forward. And then there's the other part that is the sort of more, which is my two lives anyway, when I work with artists and when I audition. And then there's the other part of me that is, okay, I'm going to need to take the notes. Do I have this paper? Is this viable? Can we do this in a way that is archival? Like, how about editioning this? And I always kind of keep that door open though. Like, if at any point the artist is like, what if these marks were in another, I don't ever close the editioning door completely, I suppose, is the quickest answer to give you.
So referring specifically to your first residency in the print Mother and Child 4 2019, a monoprint unique lettered proof, how did collaboration shape your decision making when working with that print?
Remember that I had just found out I was pregnant. So yeah, motherhood was on my mind. I remember at the time I was really excited because I was worried that I was like maybe too old to become pregnant, and all the worries you have, and I had many friends at the time who were trying for years and couldn't get pregnant, so just like the idea of even conceiving and carrying was felt like the opposite of like whoopsie daisy, I got pregnant, it was like the other end of it, and then so when I did get pregnant pretty easily, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a mom now. And just like the excitement and also the fear of what that might mean. Like really, I think I started worrying as my belly was getting bigger and bigger about what this would do to my artist identity, because something about being pregnant and noticing how this this other body is literally encroaching upon your own body made me realize that it was no longer going to be just about me. Up until that point, my husband and I, we were pretty selfish people, as artists are. We were moving around, doing residencies all over the world, having fun making art. And then so then, yeah, the pregnancy was sort of like, oh man, what is this going to do to my life? Interestingly, I wanted to depict the baby almost like an animal, which is why when you look at it, there's like something kind of menacing about the baby. And I didn't want it to be this like sweet, I kind of wanted to challenge all the tropes of the Madonna and child in art history, where it's this angelic, beautiful thing. And even like things that you see women posting about on social media, like, oh, it's the most beautiful feeling, It's almost like I foreshadowed that I would have postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, which really was the antithesis of all these like glowing, gorgeous little cherubs suckling on their mother's breasts. It was more like sleep deprivation, and you almost felt like you gave birth to this little parasite that was literally like slowly killing you, And so that print really feels honest about how I felt, the anxiety of motherhood. And so it felt honest, and it kind of foreshadowed, I think, what was to come.